Welcome to Weapon Refine Ideas. It's been a while, hasn't it? Today we're going to be having a look at the newly announced Weapon Refine updates and sort of guessing what these characters might get. I'm particularly excited for Rutger myself. You must tell me who you're excited for in the comments. Speaking of the comments, I will put the timestamps, if I remember, in the comments. So if you're looking for a particular character, please go there. But yeah, let's get right into this. First up we have Caineghis. This guy was quite a pain back in the day when he came out, one of the first tanky beast units. In fact, he might even be the first tanky armor beast unit. He's colourless, he had lots of bulk, and he has built-in distant counter to his weapon. It's quite a force to be reckoned with on paper. But of course, you know, with inflating BST stats and, you know, all these new threats, he's not as much of a threat as he used to be, with lots of counters as well. But looking at him, I realised he's perfectly built to be a fast save unit. So what I've done on the right there is pretty much use his base kit with a fast save skill, and you realise he's already pre-built. It's quite useful actually. You don't have to do much to make him work. But of course all the merges, flowers, bells and whistles, they'll all help him to do better. But if you're looking to just make use of him, this is probably the sort of thing you'd be doing. But in order to give him a refine and make him a little bit better, what I've done is I've just improved the amount of stats he gets. It was +4 to all, but now it's +5. Just, you know, catches up to some of the other units. But I gave him a built-in fast save skill. And what this does is, unlike a lot of armor units, it frees up his C slot to be something else. I mean, fast save is a great skill. It's incredibly good, and it should stand the test of time, which is why it's good to have it in the refine. But the actual slot skills, like the C skill, it would be nice to have something else. But anyway, I've given him sort of a spectrum saviour skill, so it gives all stats. And the reason I've done that is because he needs the bulk, he needs the damage, but also his speed is actually quite salvageable. He has a super boon in speed, so if you were to fully invest in him, this gives you the tool to make as much use of him as possible, maybe with something like Savvy Fighter. But I've also, if you see at the bottom there, I've given him a bit of damage reduction, just to, you know, because there's a lot of armor killers out there. Beast killers are starting to become a little bit more common, so overall this should give him a bit of a boost. And then, just for the sake of simplicity, I've summarised the effects of the weapon here, just in case you needed it put in English, as they say. So, yeah, this is the sort of thing I'm expecting, but we'll have to wait and see. Next up is Legendary Olm. Now, Legendary Olm has actually stood the test of time rather well. He's still a very good unit. You know, he's colourless, he's got a special, he's got a decent weapon. You know, he's already quite good, and the skills he comes with have only gotten better now that he comes with Time's Pulse, and they've also improved Lunar Flash so that it ignores damage reduction. So he's a very strong character already with his remix. But I suppose looking at his weapon, it's quite simple. It just adds some extra damage. But if we have a look at his refine, what I've tried to do is expand on that a little bit more. So I've left the base effect more or less the same, but the refine effect, he's got some extra stats just to sort of, you know, keep up with modern stat spreads. But also I gave him basically a Surge Sparrow effect, so that he has a little bit of sustain. I mean, of course, you're not going to run Noontime or Soul, are you? You've got Lunar Flash, so unless you're running Mystic Boost or something, this is a good way for him to maintain HP, because while he does have no follow-up, that's not going to stop him getting hit back at least once if he doesn't kill straight away. So, you know, this gives him a bit of sustain. And that's it really. You know, he's a very simple unit, point and attack. He's very fun to use, and here's the simplified version. Yeah, it's basically just getting some attack and speed and healing. So, yeah, hopefully, hopefully they do something like this. If not, they might be a bit more creative than me. I actually struggled to think of what might be good for him, but I think that some healing is not far away from what people would want. I mean, he's already got more damage from the upgraded special, so you have to tell me what you think. But yeah. Speaking of characters that haven't aged too poorly, here's Keaton. Now, Keaton's incredibly strong. I mean, he's nothing to write home about, but he's got a really good attack stat, and he's got a brave effects on both phases. So if you were to give him distant counter advantage, like the build on the right, he'll team wipe. He'll wipe everyone out because well, he's got a good enough defense stat to take one hit. So as long as he survives one combat where he gets hit, he'll just completely destroy everything around him. I mean, of course, you know, in modern Ether raids and Arena, it might not be the case, but this is why there are fine updates here, you know, just to give him a little bit of help. So what would I do to him? I would give him Vantage built in. This lets him keep Special Spiral in the B slot. I mean, people will still run Special Spiral anyway, but comboing Vantage with Special Spiral is actually a really strong combo. It allows you to run all sorts of things. I mean, you could almost also give him cooldown -1 in the Refine, but I was a little bit hesitant on giving him too much extra because Vantage with Special Spiral, which he comes with, I think, is already quite strong, but I did give him an additional attack def penalty on the opponent when he's in Vantage Rage, and this is mostly just like all the characters, just to give them a bit of a stat catch-up. You'll notice with a lot of the older units, they often get a load of stats in their refines added on, and that's just to help them catch up, just like Dragon Flowers, really. But just to simplify it, it's literally just Vantage with an attack def inflict on the opponent. He already gets Woe Dow, attack +2. He's already a very good weapon, but this should just give him the edge in some of the matchups, I think, just to help him do a bit better. But yeah, if you have any better ideas, just tell me. I'd like to hear what people think, because you know, I don't have experience with every character in the game, and I never did encounter Keaton very much, so I wasn't sure quite how close to the line his attack was. But yeah, that's sort of what I came up for him. Next up we have Summer Laegjarn. Now she's right on the edge of being a really good unit. I mean, she's already good, but you know, if she just had a little bit more in her weapon, she'd be incredibly hard to deal with, really a pain. So what I've done on her build was just give her a far trace skill. I mean, her ability to hit and run would be incredibly scary, but essentially all you've got with Laegjarn is Dive Bomb in a weapon. So if she's got enough speed and HP, she will basically just hit twice in a row before they can counterattack. It's like Lewin's Forsetti weapon, but it's scarier because she's a flyer and she has a lot of attack and speed without too many merges. So, you know, it's kind of obvious what they do for her refine. Really, all you need to do is make the HP threshold a little bit more generous. I mean, they might not do that because even Dive Bomb has an 80% threshold, which is very high to keep your HP up. But again, if you're not getting hit, it doesn't matter too much. But you know, I just thought I'd make that easier. You know, she gets attack speed +5, which is good. But what I did for her refine is give her Canto 2. Now, Canto 2 might not seem like much, but typically ranged units with far trace only get the remainder as their Canto, or remainder +1. It's very rare that they'll get Canto 2. This is like Atri. So Canto 2 would be really, really strong for a character like this. It might even be too strong, so they might not do that. I gave it during turns 1, 2, 4, just like Atri, and this allows her in Ether raids in particular just to be a pain. I've also given her additional speed res -5, once again stat catch up, and special cooldown per attack, because why wouldn't you want Laegjarn to proc a special every single combat before the foe can counter? It's quite simple, Canto, and if I just go to the simplified version here, it's literally Canto 2 with some debuffs and a little bit of cooldown per your attack. I could go on longer, but I think it's plain and simple what Laegjarn does. And I think this would be incredibly scary if she did get it. But people have waited a while for this refine, so I think it's well deserved that she gets a boost. Here we have Hilda, I believe the first 3 houses unit to get a refine. Now, I've always thought of Hilda as quite a good unit, but when I read up what her weapon does, I was quite surprised at how interesting the weapon effect was. It's very specific. It relies on allies that have more defense than her. It relies on being close to allies. It just seemed like a very awkward weapon to make use of. Now, I haven't completely thrown that under the bus with the refine, but I'll get onto that in a minute. But just to sort of go over her, I mean, she's got good speeds, good attack, mixed bulk. It looks like she's begging for speed damage reduction, like Frenzy, Spurn, you know, dodge, speed smoke 4, stuff like this. So what I've done on the right there is maximise her speed, null follow-up, speed smoke 4. I mean, she comes with null follow-up, which is really handy, but distant dart in particular, if you can afford it, is a really good idea for her. And what it means is then she'll go in with her attack, get dodge from speed smoke 4, and then she should be able to survive attacks from most people. Her matchups are probably quite strong, and this is without all the merges and flowers, so she is a very good unit. But what will differentiate her from all the other free-to-play axe units like Lithis, Echidna, you know, so on, is going to be her weapon refine. So what I thought for her was to simplify the weapon and make it easy to use. So we've got joint drive, attack speed +4. It's basically the same thing as what her weapon did already, it's just a lot easier to use. And that's if you're within 2 spaces. If you're not adjacent to any allies, which could also coincide with the first effect if you're placing her specifically, you get attack speed +6, so it's attack speed solo essentially, and cooldown +1 for each of your attacks. So, you know, even that on its own makes her a lot better than she was, and it allows her to stick out from the crowd a little bit more. And also having a 16 might weapon compared to an inheritable 14 might weapon is very useful. And then for a refine, I thought I'd meme it a little bit. You know, Hilda's always talking about how lazy she is, but she's actually quite strong. So for turn 1, I thought of her being sort of hesitant to do anything. So she inflicts gravity to herself. She's like, I'm not going anywhere, you guys can go ahead. But it gives her a defense res +6 buff for a turn, and foe can't make a follow-up. So if you were to smite her into a group of units, she'd actually be quite prepared to take all of them down. And then every other turn she'd have pretty much like a brave arm effect where she gets to move an extra space. It'd be the complete opposite of turn 1, and she's suddenly really strong. And then speed +6 and dodge to unit for a turn is probably a bit much. But I just thought, you know, this helps her stick out from the other axe users. She's not got Gen 6 BST or anything like that, so it's not like she's going to be super broken. But this overall kind of gives her a niche, and kind of a fun gimmick too. I'm not sure if gravity will become annoying for turn 1, but turn 1's not always the most influential turn anyway, so every other turn you'll have all these spaces to move. And then simplified, you can see there it's literally just a few attack speed buffs and then a gimmicky refine. But yeah, tell me what you think. Don't usually do super gimmicky refines, but I feel like this one works, you know. I feel like there's an application for it, you know. Here he is, Rutger. I've waited so long for this refine, and I'm sure many of you have as well. I remember when he came out, everyone was so disappointed, because apparently he's a really good unit in Binding Blades, and while I haven't actually played that game through, I recognise how cool this guy is. Rutger is one of many speedy sword units, and the fact that he doesn't have a preference weapon, or hasn't had one, has mostly been more of a curse than a blessing. However, one thing that is apparent is that since he hasn't got a pref, it's more likely that they'll be more adventurous with what they give him for the base effect, whereas most of the time if a character already has a weapon with quite a poor base effect, they won't do much to change it. So perhaps the patience will be rewarded this time around. What I've done for the build is I went with something like Surge Sparrow, Frenzy, Speed Smoke 4, very typical speedy boy build. And Coral Saber's a very recent weapon that's, I believe, quite easily attainable in terms of, you know, it being on a 4-star focus, if I'm right. I might be wrong there, but Coral Saber gives him a guaranteed follow-up attack under certain conditions, which, while he's already quite fast, it does give him almost a partial no follow-up type ability. To be honest, with swords you can't really go wrong with inheritable weapons. You know, you could use the ninja katana instead if you wanted to. You know, there's so much you could do. But typically, you know, Surge Sparrow Frenzy is a very strong combo. The second you're low on health, after you know using dodge to reduce damage, you heal back up again. So, but anyway, let's go on to the refine. So, what I've done, Wanderer Blade. It's a cool name. I've gone for a 16 might slaying edge, of course. However, I've also given him the base effect of times pulse. So at the start of the turn, if his specials at max, you know, he gets an extra charge. This just helps him immediately start using his specials, which is quite fun. If you have a 2 cooldown special, that means that it'll be charged right away at the start of every turn, which is quite nice. If only I had Regnal Astra. The starter combat, you know, he can get 5 tool stats. This is his stat catch-up effect, and he also gets a few extra stats. What I've done is I've sort of given him an ideal skill. So he gets 5 tool stats if one condition's met, a further 3 tool stats if the second one is also met at the same time. However, what I've done for the main unique effect though is given a young Ike effect where just before he attacks he can reduce his special cooldown again, and the idea really is to try and help you as a player activate specials as frequently as possible, to mimic how people say he apparently has something like 100% crit rate in Binding Blade. But yeah, just to give you the simple version, cooldown -1 times pulse plus 8 tool stats, and extra special cooldown just before he makes an attack, sort of like Vantage where it activates during the fight. You know, another way of doing it would just be to give him cooldown -2 as the base weapon, but the reason why I did this is because it shows off a few different effects in play, and also I don't know whether they do cooldown -2. It's hard to tell. But anyway, tell me what you think. I'm not sure what else to do for Rutger. I just think in my head stats and special cooldown charge, so you know, there's many ways of doing that. And then finally we have Naga. Now Naga's a funny one to build. I really didn't know what to do, so I just used the remix to guide me. You know, the Divine Fang 2 giving attack and speed, and it gives dragon effectiveness. It works with the weapon quite well as the weapon stands, and the idea of the weapon is that you get more stats for however many allies are nearby that have dragon effectiveness, which is fair. You know, it works with her C skill, and Dive Bomb implies that she wants to be a player phase unit with attack and speed, who, you know, is effective against dragons. It makes sense. So Dive Bomb was a nice skill to add. So what I did was I gave a Surge Sparrow. I mean, flying characters don't really have the greatest array of ace skills. I mean, they have a good selection, but they're player phase orientated most of the time. And then Blade Session, just to maximise attack and speed, damage. She's not a particularly bulky unit, and there's a flyer and a dragon. There's a lot of people that are super effective against her. But for the refine, I sort of refined the base effect to make it easier to use. I gave it 3 range rather than 2 range, just because it won't be much better for it, but it still gives you a much easier 9 tool stats. You got adaptive damage, effective against dragons. It's quite good already. But what I did for the extra effect was I gave her the ultimate aerobatics, where you can move within 2 spaces of any ally within 2 spaces, so effective 4 movement with Dive Bomb. I thought that would be a lot better, and it's particularly useful for Aether Raid's offense, which of course is her primary focus of play as an Astra mythic, I believe. So what this will allow her to do is warp around the map, and because she is required to be near allies to grant them buffs at the start of every turn, this just helps your positioning, helps you get her in the right place. And in addition, if you're within 2 spaces of an ally, you get some attack and speed, and a joint drive attack and speed at that, with a joint drive neutralizing penalties during combat skill. I don't know what you'd call that. I'm not sure if there's a skill that does that yet, but essentially, you know, Aether Raid is full of debuffers and panickers, so if they get panicked or something, at least you can neutralize the penalties, so it doesn't hinder them quite as much. So just a multi-tool character really, and that's what her support role is supposed to be. And then just to sort of round that off, you know, it's effective against dragons, 9 tool stats at most, supreme warping within 2 spaces, joint drive attack speed, joint drive neutralize penalties. It's simple on paper, but this one took a bit of thinking, because like I said, Naga's an odd one to think of a build for, so to think of a refine was even harder, because I'm not sure exactly how people want to use her. But I assume most people would just use base kit. So if we're using Dive Bomb, if we're using the new Divine Fang, this is probably what I'd give her. Now then, I thought I'd leave this part to the end this time, just because I know a lot of you just want to get on with the refines, but here's just a quick look at how the refine sort of the state of refines is going. So book 3 units, we've still got plenty left. We've just had Hilda break the ice of the Three Houses units, so we could probably expect Dimitri, Edelgard and Claude soon. However, with the advent of Brave Heroes, it's likely they'll do Brave, Dimitri, Edelgard and Claude first. You know what would be funny, actually, is if they did the Brave versions and the normal versions at the same time, but that's extremely unlikely. I think what they'll do is, like they do always, is do the Brave Heroes as their own batch with a Grand Hero Battle and a seasonal character. But anyway, you know, we're getting on with characters. It'll be Ha soon, who's another character I'm looking forward to. And there are a lot of heroes here that are actually quite good already, so, you know, it'll be interesting to see how much of a boost they get. But yeah, is there anyone here you're looking forward to seeing? For me, it would definitely be Ha. Although there are some others here, like Death Knight, who would be nice to see get a bit better, you know, so... Annie Gren as well, though she might be a bit later. She's quite good already. But yeah, you can see how I've colour-coded them. You know, just because dancers typically don't get refines. Grand Hero battles go in order, if you haven't noticed. If you go to the Heroic Grails and skip all the seasonal characters, and skip all the dancers, and skip all the healers, then they are going in order. There's a lot of things to remove, for sure, but it's still readable. As long as you remember who's a seasonal. I kept thinking Renair wasn't one, but anyway, I've got on long enough. Let's if I move on to the seasonal, I may have made a few mistakes. I always do on the seasonal ones, but the color coding for this is simply whether they have a pref weapon or not, or if they're a dancer. And most people left are actually dancers now, so I have no idea what they're going to do. As in pref weapon users. So you got, you know, Duo Hector. You know, he doesn't need a refine yet. You know, and then you got Reinhardt and Ishtar. They're both dancers. And then you got Summerlin. Summerlin's probably the obvious one here. But then are they going to go to Hector and then book 4 seasonals? Or are they going to finally start doing the original seasonals? Because, well, I think they've had a fair amount of time without it. But it is interesting to see. You must tell me what you think. And that about rounds off this video. Sorry about the long hiatus, I suppose you could say, from YouTube. I've had my final year of uni, and now that I'm finished, I have more time on my hands for now. But I hope you enjoyed the video today, and you must tell me what you think of these refines. I don't have experience with every unit, so sometimes I might misread what you're using them for. So, you know, if you've got a better idea for any of the characters, just tell me in the comments. I always like to see what people come up with. It's the sort of thing I go looking for on YouTube. So, yeah, tell me what you think. Tell me who you're excited for. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.